Good morning. Thanks for coming out and hanging with me. Today we're going to learn how to start sweet potato slips from homegrown sweet potatoes. I have some homegrown sweet potatoes that I grew last summer that I've stored over winter, and it's time now to get them in some soil to get them started. So a sweet potato, and that's what this is, grows in the ground. But before you can start sweet potatoes, we have to create sweet potato slips. Sweet potato slips are little vines that grow out of the actual sweet potato. And as those sweet potato slips start sprouting, they come out of the potatoes. You pinch them off, you put them in a mason jar worth of water, and for our area, we can start planting them the end of May, beginning of June. So I've tried both ways of growing sweet potatoes. I've tried putting them in a mason jar and letting some roots grow out the bottom. I find more often than not that the potato itself starts to rot. So I've had most success growing it in a container of soil. Today we're going to just plant them in some of these containers. I have 2 of them. The soil moistened up, and we'll get the sweet potatoes in, and then it's just a waiting game. So time to roll up the sleeves because we're going to get our hands dirty. I love these gardening gloves. I found them on Amazon. They can be completely muddy, yet your hands stay clean. So I've got some water here in the watering can and a bunch of soil here in this container. And the soil's been obviously sitting around for several months since I purchased it, so it's pretty dry. So we are going to get that all mixed up. So this is going to take a minute. Benefits to adding water to the soil before you start planting, whether it be seeds, potatoes, really anything you've started. By adding water to start, you eliminate some dry spots. Whether it be seeds, sweet potatoes, anything that's going to start growing roots, they don't really love getting into a pile of dry soil. Soil, after sitting in a bag for a while, can turn hydrophobic. And hydrophobic means essentially you add water to the soil, and the soil is so dry that it doesn't want to absorb the water. So sometimes it just needs some encouragement. So we still need some more water. So I'm just going to empty this whole bit of water in here. If I was planting seeds, I would be a little bit more cautious of how wet I was getting the soil. But being that I am planting these sweet potatoes, it will be fine. Well, sweet potatoes will be the first thing that I will be starting this 2025 gardening season. Soon after this will be, for my area, to get started would be peppers, onions, if you're starting them from seed, which I do. And I'm excited to get 2025's garden started. Right now it is January, the end of January, and it's cold. I think the high today in my area is 20-ish degrees. So even though gardening season outside doesn't start for, at least for us, 4-ish months, because of where we live, if we want things to grow in the amount of time that we have available, we have to start them indoors. All right. So the way you know that the soil is a good amount of moisture, you pick it up, and if you can kind of form it in your hands, that's good. If you picked it up and you smushed it and a bunch of water rolled through, you definitely know that it was too moist. If it was too moist, I would just add more soil and then mix it in. All right, so I'm going to move the soil to the side and grab these containers and get them filled up. So here's the soil, pretty moist. Like I said, if you can pick it up and clump it in your hand and it stays together, that's a good amount of moisture. And if you were to squeeze it and water came pouring out of your hands, then I would say it's too moist. If that was the case, I would just add more soil to help out the moisture level. Containers here, we're going to fill them up with soil. Super, super easy. So I'm just going to grab some soil, get it spread around. For me, when I plant my sweet potatoes, I don't plant them all the way underneath the soil in my container. I bury them, I would say 3/4 of the way, but I do leave some of the sweet potatoes showing. So let's get started. Literally, I've got this full of soil. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to press it down. And then that leaves me with, there's a rock in my soil. So that leaves me with an indent for the sweet potato. So I've got 4 sweet potatoes. I'm going to plant 2 in each container. And that should get us enough for what we need for the season. So again, I'm just pressing it down. And I'm just going to add a little bit more soil around it. And like I said, I'm going to leave about 1/4 of the sweet potato showing. And sweet potato slips take a while to start growing. So definitely important to get them started relatively early in the season. I think last year I had my sweet potatoes in soil for probably about 10 or 12 weeks. I was convinced it wasn't going to grow any slips, but they did. It just took some patience, which as gardeners we sometimes need. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing with this other pan, and I'll bring you up closer so you can see what I'm doing. All right, let's show you a little closer. So, just taking the soil out of the bin. I prefer to mix the soil in like a Tupperware tote. You can get more even moisture versus trying to mix it in something small like this where I would be more apt to make a mess. So I fill it up pretty good. Once the soil dries out slightly, things will compact down. So I like to start with a pretty solid amount of soil in the container. And so here is one of my sweet potatoes. It grew quite funny, but it should grow sweet potatoes fine. So that one, luckily it's not much bigger because it wouldn't fit in my container very well. All right, and here is the other one. So just like I showed you in the other one, we're gonna just give them a press down. And then once I get them pressed down, we're going to add a little bit more soil around them. And so when I said that I don't bury them completely, I generally try to leave the top, or whatever's facing the top of the potato that's showing out of the container. I generally try to leave this area just so the sweet potato slips don't have to push so hard through the soil. And let's add a little bit more to this one. And that should be good. So the soil is moist enough. I probably won't have to water these for, I would say, several days. let me get this soil out of the way and I'll be right back. So let me bring you in closer and then you can see both of these containers. Some things to note about sweet potatoes. They are a heat-loving crop, and when I put these in my grow room, I will be putting them on a heat mat. So to keep the soil at a nice warm temperature, that will promote germination of the sweet potato slips. And these won't be planted outside until, like I said, probably end of May, beginning of June for our area. They are not frost hardy at all, so definitely keep an eye out on your weather. And if there's any chance of frost in your 10-day forecast, I would definitely delay planting them. So let's head to the grow room and I will put these on heat mats. So this is the heat mat that I have. I bought them on Amazon. They come in a 2-pack. The brand is Seed Factor. This will be my 3rd year of using them. They seem to be holding up well. So let's put the potatoes on the heat mat. And there they are. Sometimes I put a cover over them, sometimes I don't. We'll see how, if the soil dries out too quickly, I'll put a cover on them, but otherwise we'll just let them be. I do keep it dark in my grow room. I have a window there that I keep a shade, so that way when things are germinating, they'll just be using the grow lights. If you have an external source of light, such as a window, you may find that sometimes your plants grow towards the light versus upright, that you want them to be growing in the direction of. If something hasn't germinated yet and it's just sitting here working on growing roots, no need to provide light. Once it starts germinating and things start growing, that's when you offer whether it be the seeds, sweet potatoes, really whatever you're growing, that's when you would turn the lights on for them. So this is my growing space. I've got 3 racks. 2 of the racks are 5 feet wide. One of them is 4 feet wide. And I obviously haven't got them all set up yet because this is the first thing getting started. And by the end of the season, these will all be filled up and probably overflowing onto the floor. So they're just wire racks that you could buy at Target, Home Depot, Walmart, really anywhere. I do have grow lights set up 2 per rack, and I just leave them set up so that way I don't need to deal with it every year. So it's simple as that. If you don't happen to have homegrown sweet potatoes, head to the grocery store, go to the organic section, pick yourself up a couple, get them in some soil, try the water trick, and get some started, because homegrown always tastes better. Thanks for joining me. Bye.